Today I'm giving you a tour of all of my favorite kitchen tools. I think it's so important to have the right tool for the right job. It really helps you get the best product possible with the least amount of frustration, which is what I always aim for when I'm making something in the kitchen, besides it being delicious. Okay, let's get started. All right, I want to start off by talking about whisks. I have two types of whisks, but there are three of them. Two balloon whisks and then one French whisk. I love using a French whisk when I'm making like lemon curd or something where I have to stir continuously like a custard. Because it's narrower, it really lets me hit the edges of the pan or that corner. These balloon whisks are great for everything else. There's actually a lot of different whisks, but these are pretty all-purpose. For Swiss meringue buttercreams and Italian buttercreams, you really want to give them a whip right before use because they lose consistency quickly. And if you're doing that, having a balloon whisk that's going whip, 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 whip is perfect. I have a copper one because I love copper, because my grandmother had one and I always coveted it, but it's also really good for whisking egg whites if the power is out and you ever have to do it by hand. The copper really helps the egg whites whisk up. If you watch my videos, you know I love using lemon zest. It is amazing in so many things. I'm part Greek, so I can't help it. It's really in my genes. But I always get comments about my lemon zesting. People are like, how do you zest so quickly? My zesting is really like not where it should be, and this is the reason. You're using a zester like this. Look at that. Are my wrinkles going away? No, nothing's happening because this is super dull. It doesn't work. Even though these are the exact same brand and they're supposed to be identical, this one is sharp and can rip off that skin quickly. This one's dull, so when you go to the store and you buy a microplane, just make sure that it's sharp by, touching it with your finger. Take it out of the packaging. Give it a test run. This one, I don't know why it's dull, but it's dull. Get a sharp one. So I'm only gonna say one thing about cookie cutters, and that is I really don't use them. If I ever need a special crazy shape, I'll just cut it out after I print it out and then trace it with an X-Acto knife. It works fine and I'll save the money. If, however, you need one set of cookie cutters that you want to use all the time, get these circles. They're so handy. I use them for cookies and biscuits, and there's always some use I find. So, graduated cylinder cookie cutters. These are from, I think, Best Baker's Tool Celebration Sale. It's like some generic Amazon brand, but I can't live without these. So, one set, all you need. This is kind of basic, but sharp knives, they're so important. Recently, I had a set of dull knives that I couldn't sharpen, but the problem was that I couldn't cut anything. So I was trying to make a salad, it wasn't working. I just gave up and ordered food for the whole time, and I was miserable and gained a lot of weight and spent a lot of money. Get those sharp knives and keep them sharp. It makes all the difference in the world. All right, you've probably seen people use these. They're called silicone mats, and this one is a Silpat branded silicone mat, but I have a couple generic ones and they all work the same. Basically, they're insulating your cookie or biscuit or whatever you're making from the sheet pan, and that prevents you from getting those dark edges at the bottom. I actually really like burnt cookies. It's just me, I think, but if you don't like burnt cookies, or if you want to photograph them later like I do, then go ahead and use these and they will prevent you from having those burnt bottoms, which some people don't like. Making pastry can be really frustrating, especially like a pie crust, because you only have a few minutes of workable time before that butter heats up and the pastry kind of like begins to melt. And if you're trying to make a lattice top or do something fancy, it can be really frustrating, and I've been there. Something that can help is using a pastry mat. So basically you're gonna roll out your pastry on this. It tells you like how big it is, so you know for a 9-inch pan, you have to make like a 10-inch or 11-inch circle, so you'll have a little bit of extra. And when you're done rolling it out, you can lift it up and invert it, or roll it, or do whatever you want. It just basically helps you get it off the counter, and it's much less likely to stick. And even if it does stick because you worked it too long, you can take this, put it on a cookie sheet, put it in the fridge to chill, and it'll all be okay. Unlike having it just be on the counter directly and it's ruined because you're just like trying to pry it off, and the tears are mixing in, all that bad stuff is happening. So pastry mats can be really helpful. Okay, I want to talk about rolling pins for a second, and I'm starting off with this crazy one, which is not one of my favorites, but I just thought it was a cool side to share. So this has a removable little edge here, little pin that comes out, and you have these colored guides. They're like training wheels, so it's like 1/16 of an inch, and it goes all the way to 3/8 of an inch. Perfect if you're making like a cookie and you want them all to be uniform, like for sugar cookies, for example. But it's kind of like training wheels, so I don't know if you need that. Maybe you're an expert baker. Maybe you're gonna use a French rolling pin, which is rounded, so it kind of helps move that dough out, and you're not gonna have any of those sharp lines from the edge when your rolling pin is, because it's angled, so it tapers basically. And then this one is my favorite. It's the straight rolling pin. I don't know why I like it so much, but I find it to be the most useful, and it's a straight edge rolling pin. I'm sure everybody has one, but a good spatula is great to have in the kitchen. This is metal, which I love because I've broken several of the wooden ones I have. I don't know how that happened, but it happened. So a metal or plastic spatula, really useful for getting every last drop of batter or whatever else you're making out of that bowl. Nice strainer to sift stuff. I have many different ones. Some are for sifting flour, some are for juices. It's great to have a set. So I'm not a big fan of one-off tools that only have one specific purpose that are kind of random. Like I don't have any egg separating tools. That's dumb. Use your fingers. If you have an egg separating tool and you're offended, I'm sorry. I get a lot of comments whenever I say something negative. Anyways, I love this cupcake core. It's perfect for removing the center from a cupcake, so you can fill it either with more buttercream, a chocolate ganache with some bourbon in it, a custard, a lemon curd. So many different options, and it gives you a very consistently sized void to fill, which is perfect for cupcakes, so everyone gets the same amount of filling in theirs, and it's all standardized. So I have a ton of cake stands, but this one is basically famous. much more famous than I am, because it's in all my videos on Instagram. This one is so handy. It's from a brand called Chef N, so Chef apostrophe N, and you can get it at craft stores or on Amazon. It's kind of pricey on Amazon though for some reason. I don't know why. But it comes with a set of plastic piping tips on the bottom. I just threw those away because I like metal piping tips. The plastic ones don't really hold in the piping bag well, and I use this. I use it for cupcakes. I use it for cakes where I just place the stand directly on top, and it's not too tall, or it's just the right size. And you can also decorate little buttercream roses by putting your parchment paper right in the middle, and it kind of keeps it stable and still turny. If you want to get a fancier turntable, or if you make larger cakes that you need to have a larger base for, get a nice metal one. This is like, I think a generic one. It doesn't have any brand name on it, but it spins forever, which is nice. Really good ball bearings, and basically as long as it's metal, I'm pretty sure the quality's gonna be fine. Don't buy those really low plastic turntables. I bought one and it is the worst thing ever. It can't even spin once without stuttering, and it is a nightmare. So that's my only advice. Many different good brands, but try and get a metal one with good ball bearings. If I'm making a sheet cake, I really like a thick layer of icing. That's like one of the main benefits of it, besides it being so easy. And to get that and to have a little bit less mess, I like to use an ice cream scooper. Really handy, just scoop that icing on top, and then you can smooth it out, and you get a really thick layer, and you don't tear the cake up too much, which is nice, especially if it's a tender or really fresh cake that can tear easily. Let's talk about my favorite cake smoothing tools. This is a bench scraper, and I think it was really invented for dividing dough. Like if you're a bread maker, you divide your dough, make different loaves. I love using it for smoothing the vertical edge of a cake. Really nice. If you're having issues with your buttercream, like it's losing consistency or if things are going left, here's my recommendation. Take the cake, step away from it, put it in the fridge. You need to take a step back, because if you overwork it, things can go left really quick. And then you're going to get some scalding hot water, dip your smoothing tools into the hot water to warm them up, take your chilled cake out, and then continue smoothing it, and it fixes a lot of the final like little imperfections that really drive you crazy. Tip for the day. All right, bench scraper, the alternate version of this is like I think it's called a comb. So it has different textures on the edge or patterns, and you can use it for making stripes like I did on my Easter cake, or just for getting any kind of little decoration you want in there. There's many different varieties, and some of them have giant combs, so your cake can have beautiful little ridges. You can do like a wavy version, but I use it to make stripes. So for the top of the cake, I love using an offset spatula. It gives you more control, and when I'm smoothing the last final bit, which is the edge of the cake, I'll just take my offset spatula and pull in as I turn the cake, and you'll get a nice, beautiful, perfect edge. Really handy. I love using a piping nail for piping buttercream flowers like roses or whatever else. You have a lot of control because it's in your hand. Put a little buttercream on top of it, square parchment paper, and get to piping. When you're done, you just gently slide the parchment paper off, and I like to chill my flowers so when I put them on the cake, I can handle them and they don't fall apart. Nobody wants a rose that falls apart after all that hard work. So let's talk about piping tips, and just before that, I want to say, get a set of heavy-duty piping bags. You can use reusable ones too, those are great, but get heavy-duty ones. I love large because they can hold a lot, and I just buy a ton of them, and then you don't have to worry about, oh, my piping bag is too small, and refilling it, which is a hassle. Piping tips. It's so important to have the right one for the right detail. I have an 858, which is a large closed star tip, perfect for dollops, but my favorite dollop tip, which is better for Italian and Swiss meringues because of the consistency, is an 829, a large open star tip. My favorites. If you love dollops, get those too. What about flowers? Okay, so for flowers, I have a couple tips that are really great. If you want to make roses, a 127 tip is great for petals. Sharp end goes up, the teardrop side is the base, and you're good to go. 122 tip is curved like an apostrophe kind of, and I love it for peonies and also for roses that are a bit more closed. And you can also use it with another tip to make beautiful orchids. Yeah. So if you're making an orchid, you can use the 122 tip and a 401 tip for the center petals. Really easy and so pretty, very delicate. If you're making flowers, you might as well have a couple leaves hanging around. This is a 68 tip, which makes like medium-sized leaves, which I find perfect for cakes. I'm also obsessed with dyeing my buttercream with matcha powder to get a beautiful, natural green. Okay, so for cake pans, I have two things to tell you. Two sizes that I like are 6-inch. I love this for portion control and for like a smaller family. And then for a bigger get-together, an 8-inch, or even, I do have a set of 9-inch pans, but they get used almost never. So 6 and 8-inch, and the most important thing to tell you is to get a vertical edge on the pan. See it? Edge goes straight up, perfect for decorating and stacking a cake. The first set of pans that I bought had edges that were angled so they could be stacked, and it meant the sides were crazy. I had to trim them, use more buttercream, there were crumbs, it was a general nightmare. So just make sure your edges are nice and vertical. The last thing I want to mention are cake strips. You can click up here for my video on cake strips if you want to know how to make your own or how they work, but get a set of these. They really help you get a flat layer cake. Doesn't need to be trimmed, and it won't be as burnt on the sides. Some people have told me in the comments they like burnt cakes and they don't mind trimming them. Never mind about that then. But if you want a flat layered cake, you can either make a set or buy a set. They come in really handy. This might be my top tool. Thanks so much for watching. I really hope you found the video to be informative, and I don't know if entertaining is the right word, but informative. I actually think that being prepared is the most important thing in the kitchen. I even named my blog Preppy Kitchen in large part because I think that all the frustrations that bakers have at home stems from not having the right tools and being properly prepared. All right, hit that like button. Thank you for watching again, and don't forget to subscribe.